us being through this, we've realized your children don't want your things. Like our kids aren't going to want. They've got their own lives. They've got their own possessions and that. They don't want our stuff.
You can learn a lot from Dave Henry after his experience helping his dad downsize and move to a Calgary retirement residence.
3,800 square feet of possessions over a lifetime. Like they were married 60 years, right? And so they had everything. And trying to get him in advance to say, okay, once the house was for sale, you got to start, moving. You got to start getting rid of stuff or figure out what you want moved. That was probably the hardest part. And throws it across the room and says, look it up yourself.
His dad is settled in now and enjoying the convenience and company that comes from living here.
That was 1980.
I told David and Susan that I think it was time I moved into a home because I'm, able to do things for myself now. But you never know, just like that, you could end up with a stroke or something, and I did not want to present a liability to them.
But how do you know when it's time to downsize and move into a retirement home? For this family, one of the reasons was the social aspect.
The constant activity, and he can pick and choose what he wants to do, and there's more of a life to him, more of a spark.
In this episode of Unison TV, we look at how a Calgary company is helping seniors downsize and learn tips from people who have been there, done that.
The thought of change, never mind all the stuff you got to deal with, just the thought of it can be crippling.
So that was really good too, to get them to do the whole move. And then it was exactly like when you walked in the door, that's how it was set up. And that's a godsend, right? And it just felt like
it's been a sea change for me. It takes some getting used to, but I was for 2 years on my own in Kelowna from the time my wife died until the time I moved in with David. And so I make it a point of, I don't wait for people to come to me. I go to the people and sit down with them, different people.
When Mom passed away in 2022, we gave him, my sisters and I all came and said, what do you want to do? And he said, I think I'd like to stay here. I said, okay, fine. So it was 2022, 2023. And the thing about Dad is you have to let him believe it's his own idea. So I would broach it and then just leave it. And then it was about 1.5 years after Mom had passed, and I said, you know what? It was actually on his 90th birthday, and all my sisters came in. We had it at the house, and we all talked to him and said, okay, everybody you knew in Kelowna, they've been there 33 years, but everybody you knew has passed away. And all your golf buddies have passed away, and the people that he was part of the vets with had passed away, the people that he knew, his age. And so our kids are the only ones that have children, so his great-grandchildren. So I said, why don't you come to Calgary? You can live with us, and your great-grandchildren can get to know you rather than just when they're older. Who's that in the picture? So he was okay with that. Then it was a matter of, we put the house up, and my sisters all talked to him, said the same thing. They all thought it was a good idea. They're all down east. And we said, you can live with us. We'll keep some of the furniture. If you decide you want to move out in 1 year or whatever, that's fine. We can find a place. If you want to stay, that's great. So then it was this spring, we went to Palm Springs, and he slipped coming out of the pool and cut himself and needed 13 stitches. So when we got back from Palm Springs, he said, we were there for 2 weeks. He said, the first 2 weeks was great, but the second week, you just looked after me, so your holiday wasn't really what you thought it would be. And he said, I think I'd like to move out. And so Sue and I, we were having dinner and we all talked and said, you don't have to. Like, you can move when you want to move. And if you do, that's great. And he said, well, I think it's probably time. And he cited the example, like he just didn't want to wake up and have had a stroke or couldn't get out of bed. And then we're scrambling to try and find a place for him. So I said, okay, let me look around. And the first place I thought it was this, because Derek had worked here, as you know, and I phoned and they had 2 places available. So Tracy, she's the marketing director, I guess, and called her, and she said, "Yeah, I've got 2 places. Come and look, and they're both available." So we brought him, and we looked at the first one. Wasn't real keen on that one, and then looked at the one that he's in now. It was staged, but he really liked the fact that sunroom and go through the bedroom and stuff. And then we toured the whole place, and then we sat here and so, what do you think? And he goes, I really like it. And he had looked, she gave him examples of the menus and the activities and whatnot. And I said, okay, well, then I think you should do it. And he goes, well, I said, Dad, they come and they go, right? So maybe you go home in a week from now, you decide, I should have taken it, but it's gone. So yeah, that's basically what it ended up being. He decided to take it while it was available. And that was end of April. And then he moved in the end of May. And the other side of that coin was moving him here. And I told you about Carefree Concierge. And so that was really good too, to get them to do the whole move. And then it was exactly like when you walked in the door, that's how it was set up. And that's a godsend, right? And it just felt like home to him. And then subsequent to that, he was afraid that, well, I won't know anybody and, that kind of thing. And I said, it's not high school. You guys are all in your 80s. Like, you've all had great lives and you got lots to talk about. Well, the first night at dinner, they allow them for breakfast and lunch to seat where they want, but at dinner they move them around, so there's never any cliques. Yeah, it's really good. So the first night he gets seated with this couple, and it turns out he was a retired Edmonton City Police. So he had something in common right away, and it went further beyond that because a guy that Dad worked with in the force, Bob Lunny, at the end of the 80s was the chief of police in Winnipeg after he retired from the force. So he knew Bob, and that guy knew the chief, being Bob. So they had a lot of and it was that day, the next day. They also have an ambassador when a new client moves in that takes them for the first week, shows them everything, introduces them to people and so on. And if they have any questions, like how to sign up at the front door, if next week they want to go to the pub and there's a bus leaving, how to deal with that. So they don't leave them to their own devices. So that was really good. And man, after about a week and a half, it was like, Dad, are you there? Like, we couldn't get a hold of him. So we would, oh, it's great. And the activities, and then the staff is really good. Like, they're so good with all the clients. So he's noticed that. And then with his background, he was always having to speak to people, right? And the one thing I was afraid of was that if he moved into a place like this and people found out who he was and that, he's like, I don't want anybody to know my business, and then it would kind of be standoffish. But it was the opposite. Like, he doesn't mind it at all. And people, they show, it's not like today's, how police are treated today. When you're 86 years old, you had a different life experience with the police than someone who's 26 years old. So it's all good that way. Yeah. It's been, I find, like, I golf every morning. My wife's still working with the Bank of Montreal, albeit from home. And we would do things, and I'd come home and then Dad and I would watch the Blue Jays or something, and Sue would join us. But it still wasn't what he's getting here, right? The constant activity, and he can pick and choose what he wants to do. And there's more of a life to him, more of a spark. Like, he's always about, what are we doing? Oh, tomorrow I'm doing this, and this. And, oh, we're going here. Dad, I'll come visit you on Thursday. No, I'm going out. So, yeah, it's good that way.
And so that's one of the reasons you knew it was a good idea for him, just the social aspect too. Right?
Yeah, that. And I agreed with him that because Mom had dementia for 7 years. So, we went through that, and that was as Jan Arden says, that's the long goodbye. And because my sisters are down east, like, my wife and I dealt with that. I'd go to Kelowna twice a month and help out. And when she was at home, and then it got to the point where she couldn't be at home, had to find a place for her, and we scrambled, and, as I told you on the phone. And yeah, you know what? I knew what he was saying. And to go through that again with another parent, would be hard, right? Here, the wellness centers here, like there's a nurse on staff, he's going to get all the care. And as they go through their assisted living and enhanced living and memory care, and they're palliative, and it will always be in that suite, right? Never have to move. And change is hard for seniors, right? So that was another good point about it, right? And we didn't have, I had already been through it with Mom scrambling, trying to find a place for her in a weekend. We didn't have to do that. And we told them, like, even after we were here through that month of May before he took possession, if you're changing your mind at any time, let me know. Like, it doesn't, Tracy's fine. Just because you sign the documents doesn't mean you're bound by it. And he really started to look forward to when he looked more into the activities and the things he could be doing in that. Yeah, it was easy that way.
Yeah, there's a lot less to do when you're staying at your kid's house.
There is. And when your kids are, like I'm 65, it's you raise your children and you're empty nesters. They say that our generation is the only one who's looking after their parents and looking after their kids, who boomerang on occasion, right? So I think of when I grew up, I was in my teens when my grandparents all passed away, right? So that my parents would have been in their 50s, right? So we're in that sandwich generation, and it's
kids in the basement and grandma and grandpa in the basement.
That's what he said. Oh, we got the teenager back in the house, right? And he's good. Like, I mean, he works an iPhone. He's 93 years old. He knows exactly what to do with an iPhone. So, we were always bugging him because he's on his phone.
Yeah,
Dad, right? Get off the phone. Come on. What are you doing? And we would joke with the neighbors, our teenagers, we can't get a hold of them. Can you just go knock on the door and make sure everything's okay? So it's good that way. It's something that Sue and I, because Sue lost her parents really young. So it's something that we're both glad that we did, and allow him to transition on his own time. After Mom passed, he basically had 1.5 to 2 years by the time we moved. So 2022 to August of 2024, and another 2 years to move into here. So it was good for him. They'd been in that house 33 years, and it was 2,800 square feet up, and then 1,000 something in the basement. So 3,800 square feet of possessions over a lifetime. Like, they were married 60 years, right? And so they had everything, and trying to get him in advance to say, okay, once the house was for sale, you got to start moving. You got to start getting rid of stuff or figure out what you want moved. That was probably the hardest part. He had home instead. That's what I was trying to remember. Yeah, he had home instead because Mom had home instead. And then when she passed, I said, well, why don't you keep home instead? Because it'll give you that conversation, right? On a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they come, and then they do the house cleaning and stuff like that. So I said, get them to help. The home instead is really good, but the person at that point that he had wasn't really helpful. Was not on fire to do that. And so, because my sisters are down east, it fell to Sue and I to look after that. So it was to go through things, and we, about 3 weeks before the moving truck came, we gave stuff. I brought a trailer out, and we moved stuff to the Salvation Army. We moved it to Goodwill. We moved it anywhere we could, things that he decided he didn't want to take with him. But still, the truck, I'll show you when you're done. I'll show you the picture of the truck. I mean, it was a 10 by 30 locker, and then everything into our basement, right? So that part was, once it was settled, it was okay. But actually making that, I think it's probably like any family, you try and get your siblings to help, but everybody's busy, right? And then the distance was an issue. If we're all in the same city, it probably would have been much easier. But to get it done, and we knew it had to be done. And once we were by it, now having said all that, someday we'll have to go through it again with things, right? But Carefree Concierge, one of the things they offer is that they'll help you with the estate and look after things and help you get things to places rather than all resting on you. So the move was the biggest part.
The move from Kelowna
Move from Kelowna. Yeah, that was just so much work, right? Now, if he'd have been in a place like this in Kelowna, it would have been a lot easier, and because everything's coming, you don't have to spend 3 weeks going through it all and deciding does it come or not come. And my sisters came out and Dad said, you guys can, whatever you want, make a list, and if there's crossover, then you guys work it out. Okay. And if you can't, then I'll make the decision. Okay. So we all made our list and there was no crossover. A couple of things. You know what? It'd be better. You've got a beach house. It'd be better with you. These chairs, they look better in a beach house. So that worked out really well. Then they came out and they got their stuff and then shipped it back. And we still have stuff in the garage that we're thinning out, that it's sort of out of sight, out of mind for them now. And picture that generation, like they were big into coffee table books, right? Things like that. Yeah, and it meant something to them, but it doesn't mean anything to their children. But it was sitting in the garage in a box. He says, well, I'll go through that later. And he's never mentioned it now. So we'll take it to Goodwill. And he won't even, it'll never come up, But it's all, like they say. And us being through this, we've realized your children don't want your things. Like our kids aren't going to want. They've got their own lives. They've got their own possessions and that. They don't want our stuff. So Sue and I made the decision that at some point, because our house is 3,000 square feet and it's full, and saying we'll have to start getting through things and deciding that we're going to downsize.
What are some of the signs that we should be looking at that say, you know what, I think it's time for me to downsize?
That's a great question. And it's very practical. Some of the things are is your house safe? Like if you have mobility issues, if that's starting to become an issue and you've got stairs to navigate between your bedroom and the main floor where you spend the vast majority of your life, if that's posing you concern where you're nervous about going up and down the stairs, that's a sign. If you've got a room in your house or a floor of your house where that's become a repository for all things not needed, and you just close the door because that way you don't see it and you can walk by it, but you haven't been in that room for a very long time, that's a sign. If you're not making proper meals for yourself, it's very easy if you're a single person. You've lost your spouse, or maybe your spouse isn't well and you're a caregiver plus making meals and you're not eating well. You're relying on cereal and soup out of a can, and you're just getting lazy with food. That's a sign. So how often do you talk to somebody else? If you're spending days and days and days on end without social interaction, that's a sign. So yeah, there's a lot of those kinds of things. That the most important ones are what you're eating, and is your home safe for you? If you have navigation issues, like moving around, that's definitely something that you should be contemplating now. Maybe it's time I get to a zero clearance home. Where I
That
don't
eating one was interesting. The stairs seemed like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But, and I was thinking maybe snow clearing, that kind of stuff. But the eating thing is a good point as well.
Yeah, and we see that so much when we go back to visit our clients, because we do a lot with senior residences, and so we're often back in a building where we've moved a client 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, what have you, and we'll see them again, and they're different people because they're eating well. Those buildings, those communities, they have Red Seal chefs and nutrition programs and 3 meals a day, and they're checking on you if you're not coming down for dinner. And if they're not that kind of building, if they're 55 plus and there's social interaction, they get friends in the building, and if they haven't seen you come down for lunch or breakfast, somebody's going to knock on your door for dinner. And they're bringing you down to the dining room, right? Like there's accountability, there's friendship, there's responsibility, there's just this camaraderie, and it's their own peers. They're all going through the same season of life together. And so they can understand far better than you and I can right now. But it's so important to get out of the house, you know.
What conversations have you had to have with, say, people that are a little more adamant about staying in their home, even though they check these boxes for, yeah, you should. Guess what families, or do you see that happening in families where you have to try to maybe use more persuasion? Are you, do you know
Yeah.
what tips you would have for that?
Well, you know, they can definitely visit our website and get those tips, those
Hmm.
signs that it might be time to downsize. Those can be very helpful with mom and dad in that
Hmm.
conversation. Uh, it does take time sometimes for people
Hmm.
to, you know, the older we get, the more change is an overwhelming thing, right? In your 20s and 30s, you're moving all the time. You're restarting, you're engaging in different careers, and it's just part of your life at that point.
Hmm.
But you get to your 60s, 70s, and up, and you're kind of settled. You've got your roots down,
Hmm.
and the thought of change, never mind all the stuff you got to deal with, just the thought of it can be crippling. Plant the seeds. Find other friends of your parents, of your people that you're talking to that have gone through it and made it and can speak to them about the fact that it's, you know what, George and Edna, it was a good move for us. Like, we have no stress now, no yard to clean up. We want to go golfing. We want to go out for dinner. We want to go see the kids in another province. We lock the door and we're gone. You know, there's no lawn mowing. There's no snow shoveling. There's none of that stuff. No groceries. And,
Hmm.
and people might think the expense of moving or the expense of going into a retirement community. My house is paid for, right? I don't have that cost anymore. But if you sit down with a piece of paper and you go through the bills for your property taxes, your grocery payments, your utilities, your lawn care, your snow removal, insurance, you know, you add up that list. And then you think, my rent at a senior residence and the food is provided. It washes out to being almost the same, but zero stress. You know, so sometimes it's just going through the math. And the other thing that I'd recommend is having, you know, I'd love to come and meet everybody and have that initial consultation, but that's
Hmm.
obviously not possible. But there are other experts to just come in and have that initial conversation. Sometimes it's easier to hear it from somebody who's not family,
Hmm.
right? I mean, when I go to my mom and dad and tell them I think this is what we should do, they're like, "You're my son. I tell you what to do. That's how this relationship works. You don't tell me,
Hmm.
right? So if you can bring in an outside person
Hmm.
that's an expert and seen as an expert, and they're just coming in to give recommendations and open their eyes to some options. And in our case, we can make it all very easy in terms of that weight on their shoulders because we do it all. You know, we
Hmm.
sort and we organize, we pack, we move, we unpack it, set up, and then we go clear out your home. We help you sell things to turn it into cash. And then
Hmm.
we have your home cleaned and hand the keys over to the kids or the realtor. You don't lift a finger, right? We'll pour your coffee or your tea. You sit in your favorite chair, and all you have to do is make one decision for every piece. Keep, gift, donate, dispose. Those are your four categories. That's it. Keep, gift, donate, dispose. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's amazing how five people who know what they're doing can get what they can get accomplished. And usually by the end of the first day, our clients are going, wow, that was pretty easy, you know? And at the end of it, when they walk in and we're pouring them a glass of wine, when they walk through the door for the big reveal and the bed's made and the TV's on and Frank Sinatra's playing on the radio and, you know, all of our staff are dressed in our Carefree gear.
Hmm.
And we're literally pouring them a glass of wine or a martini or a margarita, whatever they like, or a glass of, you know, a cup of coffee.
Hmm.
Put your feet up, listen to Frank for a little while before you go down for dinner. That's all you got to do. Everything's done. Art's on the wall, TV's working, phone's connected. Like, you know, it's done.